Calling up amendment log number 5619 by Ms. Jacobs. For what purpose does the gentlelady seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will report the amendment. What's the text on that? Without objection, reading the amendments dispensed with, the chair recognizes the gentlewoman for the purpose of explaining her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my amendment is pretty simple. It would prohibit any funds from being used to install, maintain, or support any communications infrastructure in DoD facilities that don't follow security protocols. And it prohibits the Secretary of Defense from communicating about classified military operational plans using insecure methods. I'm proud to represent San Diego, the biggest military community in the country. And when I go home, it's my job to look those military family members in the eye and tell them I'm doing everything in my power to keep their loved ones safe. That's why I find it so disgraceful that Secretary Hegseth was so cavalier and reckless with sensitive information about an imminent military strike, jeopardizing operational integrity and potentially putting our service members' lives at risk. I would expect our top military advisor in this country to have the utmost care and caution and reverence for our service members' safety. But as we all know, that is not the type of Secretary of Defense that we have. In April, the Associated Press reported that Secretary Hegseth used Signal to discuss classified military operations and had an internet connection that bypassed the Pentagon's security protocols set up in his office to use Signal on his personal computer. That shows a blatant disregard for our security protocols that shouldn't be repeated. I know every person on this committee cares deeply about the safety of our service members, so I hope that there will be unanimous support for my amendment to protect classified information and the safety of our service members. I yield back.
Chair recognizes himself. Much like the previous amendment, this is just another political attack on the Secretary of Defense. Everyone with a clearance is briefed on proper handling of classified information and must sign an appropriate oath. We should let the ongoing review play out. Any action before that process is complete would be premature. I oppose the amendment and now recognize gentlelady from Pennsylvania, Ms. Houlihan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I am rising in support of Ms. Jacobs' amendment, which is a more narrowed version of Mr. Ryan's 5494. As she mentioned, it prohibits the SecDef from communicating about classified material using personal devices and insecure methods, and it states that no funds can be used to install or to maintain or support any communications infrastructure in DoD facilities that are not in compliance with relevant standards. Rules for thee and not for me seems to be the law of the land right now when it comes to the Secretary of Defense. When I held a top secret clearance in the Air Force, how to manage sensitive information was practically drilled into me, as it is into all of our service members. And if I had done what Secretary Hegseth did as a junior officer, I would have resigned and likely expected to be prosecuted and perhaps jailed. Secretary Hegseth seems to have forgotten his training, or perhaps has no regard for how it applies to him, all while he talks relentlessly about leaks and accuses people of being untrustworthy and disloyal to the administration and to this nation. More than once, he's used a publicly available and non-secure and non-approved messaging app to share details about forthcoming military action, despite having every tool at his own disposal to have these classified conversations in secure networks. His negligence could have put our service members at risk, and it could have killed them. But he and other members of the administration have continued to downplay the situation, including in front of this committee. If members of this committee were really true to themselves, I very much believe that they know that we shouldn't even have to have this amendment codified. But sadly, with this particular Secretary of Defense, here we are. This is where we are. And we should collectively, bipartisanly, be supportive of it. What Secretary Hegseth did has had no repercussions for him. So I guess we genuinely, legitimately need a law. I believe that if Secretary Hegseth had any decency, he would have long ago resigned over this conduct or had some sort of announcement of reform. But until then, I guess we need a very specific law. So I ask the committee to be supportive of this amendment. And as Mr. Bacon said, if there are other ways other than the previous amendment to perhaps be supportive without restricting the funding at a 75% level, he perhaps would be supportive of that. I would ask the committee members to really think within themselves, dig deep, and understand that we only need a couple of us to step forward, in addition to the ones who already have, to decry this particular behavior and to support this particular amendment. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair, and I recognize gentleman from Georgia, Dr. McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is an investigation. There has been change. There will be accountability. I've seen mishaps and mistakes made in the military where we had top-down reviews. We have a voluntary review process ongoing right now, and we do not make permanent changes until the formal review process is complete. Now, unlike a review process when I believe Secretary Hillary Clinton was in charge and evidence was destroyed, I think this will be a much more transparent and open investigation. Legislating this issue is inflammatory and could interfere with an ongoing DOD Inspector General's investigation. It's not appropriate until the investigation is complete. I urge a no vote on this amendment.
Gentleman yields back. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Vindeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've already commented, at least for now, on Signalgate sufficiently, but I do want to point out one more time, now this is based on my experience as both a White House lawyer and a Department of Defense lawyer, that the investigation by the Department of Defense, IG, is not capable of getting down to drilling down to all the details that we need. They have no purview to be able to investigate other departments or agencies or the White House National Security Council. So the only way to go about this, the only way to get a complete and full investigation is to have Congress investigate. And one more point on the whataboutism on previous administrations. I think we need to deal with the here and now. Let's talk about accountability for the current failings. Thank you. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Cisneros.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like everybody on this committee knows that whenever we go into a classified briefing, whenever we go to read classified materials, we are walking into a SCIF in order to do that. That means removing your cell phone, removing any phone, anything with a Bluetooth connection. You have to take it off your personal self before you enter the room. At the Pentagon, when I was there, my office was a SCIF. I couldn't walk into I couldn't walk in with my personal cell phone. I had to take my Fitbit off. I had to take my headphones out of my pocket. The Secretary's office is a SCIF. He cannot take any of his personal devices into his office. When he walks into his office, or at least when I was there, Secretary Austin would take everything off his phone, hand it to his person, and he would put it outside the office where it would stay until he left. Same thing with the Deputy Secretary. The fact that the current Secretary of Defense would put a dirty line in his office in order so that he could communicate inside a SCIF is just unimaginable and without any comprehension for the law at all. And so, you know, this is very simple. Take it out of your office. Admit that you were wrong. Live by the standards that the E1s and the O1s and everybody else in the military has to live by. You are supposed to be there leading by example. Get it together and do this. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Moulton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just want to respond to some of the concerns from across the aisle. Yes, it's true that there is an investigation ongoing. The investigation has been going on for quite some time. It's hard to see that it's not been dragged out. But what we're asking with this amendment is not a change in policy, as Mr. McCormick has suggested. The policy is very clear. There's no one in this room who would imagine sitting in a SCIF and having unclassified internet piped into that room. I'm sure General Bergman had a SCIF in his command. I'm sure he didn't request unclassified internet piped into that room. I'm sure that Mr. McCormick didn't suggest having unclassified internet piped into his ready room. so that classified mission data could easily be shared with friends, wives, supporters, whoever it is. So there's no change in policy, but the reason the amendment is necessary is because this secretary has, in fact, done these things. He's done something that, as long as it exists, is a national security threat to the United States. We know on this committee, because we get the classified briefings, just how sophisticated our adversaries are. Some people on the other side of the aisle feel confident that the secretary has learned his lesson, and yet there is no accountability, so it's hard to understand that he has. If, though, in fact, they're true that he has learned his lesson, then there's no consequence to this amendment, because it simply says that the secretary is going to follow the procedures that everyone else in the military, including my colleagues who have served, have had to follow for their entire careers. So it's just hard for me to understand what the objections to this are, unless they are purely political, unless you're just afraid of crossing Trump or Hegseth. This should be something that the secretary, the president, would take in stride, if indeed changes have been made, if indeed accountability is accepted, and if indeed we on this committee care about the chance that this does happen in the future, that classified mission details are released. We're lucky that those missions were just over Yemen for a mission that my colleague said was very successful, even though there has not been a single U.S. flagged ship that has transited the Red Sea since expending hundreds of millions of dollars worth of ammunition that we really need to deter China. But putting that aside, imagine if this mission had been over China or Russia. Those pilots would be dead. And yet I still wonder if the secretary would have apologized to the mother of those pilots, of that pilot. This is about accountability, yes, but it's about just basic common sense. So let's take the politics out of it and just do the right thing, not for the secretary, but for every young man and woman who serves under him. I think that's our responsibility on this committee. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Any other members seeking recognition on the Jacobs amendment? Seeing none, the question occurs on the amendment by Ms. Jacobs. So many is in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. Opinion of the chair is the amendment is not agreed to. A recorded vote is requested. The recorded vote will be postponed to a later time.